what we're trying to do here today really gets at, I think, one of the more challenging sides of my role at the city, which is finding really engaging and inspiring ways to reach people about this topic that can be so wonky sometimes and also be very scary. So I'm really appreciative of everyone trying to kind of bring your collective imaginations and your intellect to this endeavor. And I know many of you in the room are trying to do something similar.
I hope my involvement with this can do is help the science to become more clear. In communicating the results of research, scientists often are doing so through publications that are intended typically for other scientists and are seldom made accessible to the wider public. And I think through something like performance art and expressing results of that research in a way that's more consumable, I think is an important thing. So there's no shortage of drama in what the expectations are for the effects of climate change. So that dramatic aspect of it, I think, should be helpful in performance expression of what we see. And the group has already been doing quite a bit with expressing the effects of climate change related to sea level rise. But other important aspects of what we expect to see happening regionally are, for example, intense warming increases to lethal levels in many cases, and especially inland areas of the county. So Salinas Valley, for example, exposure of farm worker populations to those high lethal temperatures with increasing frequency as time goes on. There's a lot of drying associated with that, and the drying out of watersheds is associated with the increased frequency of fire. We've seen that repeatedly now, year after year. 2018, the year just passed, set a new record in California for the intensity and area affected by wildfire. Sorry, I'm trying to figure out what things to highlight here of all the horsemen of the apocalypse that are I think an important thing to be thinking about in the sense of climate change and how dramatic it is the extremes we're seeing. Rather than climate change being the only term that we can use to express what we think is coming, increasingly now there's this term that's been used, climate whiplash, that's related to the extremes that we're seeing in swinging from periods of drought and extreme drought over multiple years, consecutive years, to flooding and extreme storms like the atmospheric rivers we've been experiencing over the last month or so. These atmospheric storms, especially in landscapes that have burned before, are really devastating. They're creating huge erosion problems, lots of sedimentation occurring in the rivers, which has a really important ecological impacts. But then there's these debris flows that are associated with that. And so the kind of loss and unraveling of the landscape that can occur in these high mountain watersheds, known as mass wasting. It's basically where the soils become so saturated with water that they give way in not just as one particle at a time, but entire slopes of hillsides. As the tributaries of major rivers systems are exposed to drought, they are often exposed to drought, unsurprisingly, to the extent that they dry out completely. That has really big repercussions for the quality of water and the type of water and the availability of water that's coming downstream. Importantly, to the economy of the area and to some of our real iconic species in the form of salmon, steelhead, coho salmon, is that many of the places that they depend on for breeding are in these lagoonal estuary systems that are at the bottoms of watersheds. And so during drought conditions, when there's not very much flow, creating a good exchange between the freshwater and the tidal environment, those lagoonal estuary systems become stagnant. And because they're used as important nurseries for coho and steelhead, the kind of conditions that they're exposed to can really devastate populations. So maybe that's enough on the apocalypse right now. we can use that to inspire, but I think we need the drama to be able to inspire action.